Ooh, all right. There's that special little live button. Hello, everybody. Let me pull up my little housekeeping script. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Very excited to see some familiar names in the chat. Before we get started today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which I am broadcasting to you guys from. Maybe that siren outside would also like to weigh in. I would also invite everyone here as well to reflect on the country that they are meeting from. If you would like to throw it in the chat, please do. I'm personally broadcasting today from the traditional lands of the Wurrung and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and that sovereignty was never ceded. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to introduce Caleb. Caleb Trsicari is going to be our guest speaker for Toolkits Digital Storytelling 2024. Thank you, Caleb, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Let me see here. I'll do a bit of an intro for me first, and then I'll do an intro for Caleb, and then I'll do some general spiel about Toolkits for anybody in the chat who maybe doesn't know about Toolkits, is tuning in, just curious to see what we're going to be talking about tonight. And then we'll get started into the proper questions. So I'm Aries, use they, them pronouns. I am the facilitator of Toolkits Digital Storytelling for 2024. I am a poet, editor, digital writer. I received the Red Room Poetry Emerging Poets Fellowship this year. I have been published in various places, including Crawlspace and VoiceWorks Online, and I'm very excited to be chatting with Caleb today. Caleb Triscari is a writer, researcher, and library worker in Naarm/Melbourne. His research mainly focuses on musicology and ethnomusicology, digital preservation, information, and data science. Toolkits Connect is a 12-week program for writers aged 30 and under to develop their skills in a unique and exciting online environment. Toolkits is run by Express Media. Express has been around for over 30 years, developing, supporting, and promoting young writers through workshops that develop skills, through opportunities for constructive feedback and publishing, like VoiceWorks, and through awards and programs that recognize excellence. Toolkits Connect is generously supported by Copyright Cultural Fund and Australian Poetry. This session will be available on YouTube as a resource and will be captioned in the coming days. If you'd like to ask any questions, you can do so via the live chat section on YouTube, which is floating around either to the left or to the right of your screen. And yeah, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat. We would love to get to them. So with all of that out of the way, Caleb, let's get started. I guess an easy question to start off with, as many places are, is to ask about your personal pathway into writing and coding, and specifically maybe when and how you started to combine the two.
Yeah, thanks. So I went to uni. I did my undergrad in journalism, so I was kind of interested in writing from the get-go. Yeah, and tried to get as immersed in the writing space in Melbourne as much as I could, which included, doing stuff with Express Media and attending their news conference, and shameless plug, all that kind of stuff. Did a lot of stuff with the student magazine on campus as well, which was such great fun and an amazing place to experiment with writing and other things like that. In terms of the coding side, I remember taking a introductory Python programming language subject in the final semester of my undergrad, which I've been meaning to do for years, and finally got around to doing it. And it was just what I needed. It was fantastic. It was just a very nice basic, someone telling me what to do and giving me information sheets that I could just follow, and really kind of starting up that way, which was great. And then I didn't touch coding for quite a few years, actually, and went on to work in journalism for a few years. Did quite a bit of freelance writing as well, but a lot of that was just straight prose, without kind of any coding side to it. And then the lockdowns happened.
Everyone's favorite personal.
I love that. And I was still working in journalism, working in music journalism in particular, and at the same time decided to study a bit more. I did like a little grad cert in like data science and analytics and stuff, which involved, it was very like statistics heavy.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, and it wasn't particularly like directly related to the writing itself, but it kind of kicked off that interest again that I had kind of lost a few years prior. And so and when you can't leave your house and you need things to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it was a combination of that, and then also through Toolkits as well. So I'm a Toolkits alumni through the online, represent through the online storytelling stream as well.
Awesome.
And through there learned like P5, which is the JavaScript graphics library, and then also D3, which is specifically for data visualization as well, which had a bit more of a steep learning curve, but nonetheless. So I think really kind of in those later years, I was fortunate enough to have some good editors at the time during the journalism years, where I was able to convince them to let me experiment a little bit with writing in journalism that also incorporated like data-driven aspects to it. So a lot of like visualizations and charts and things like that, interactives. So I'm very grateful for them as well. And so that was kind of the pathway, the history. And so now in my current role, I as a researcher, a lot of my work is still very data heavy. And involves a lot of like mapping and visualizations and stuff to help complement the massive amount of numbers that I often throw at my readers. So it helps.
Awesome. No, absolutely. Definitely seems like it would like all feed into each other. And I feel it's so fascinating and fun. I think the different like directions that you came at, like a bunch of different like pathways, it sounds like, even just at like an undergrad level, looking at like, I mostly did journalism, and then I had one coding class like tacked on at the end there that like helped like kind of snowball into this this like kind of hybrid practice. I think that's really cool. And I think that,
absolutely.
It's interesting to see how like different, how I guess like flexible and like how porous the barriers are between different like disciplines. I think it's really cool. Have you found when you are, we were actually having this conversation to everybody in chat a bit before the stream, actually, that Caleb has sort of come back to writing after sort of a while away from it, or like back to creative works. Have you found that, in sort of your day job, being so embroiled in like data-driven and like statistic-based places, have you found that is impacted your like creative practices in a way beyond, I just don't have time to do creative stuff anymore? Do you think it's changed the way that you like look at making, art?
No, definitely. I mean, I work full time, so obviously that takes up a large portion of my week. And
then, all of it, really.
Oh yeah, and then you get home and you're wiped out and all that stuff. No, definitely. I think that my foray back into kind of creative writing quite recently was difficult to say the least. It was like I had some like the editors that I worked with at Crawlspace were like they're both good friends, so they were very incredible and supportive and helpful. But at the same time, writing it's a skill, it's a muscle. You if you don't use it, you lose it, and I was very much out of practice. So I think that my major issue was tone. That was the big thing, because I think when you're writing like academic research, where everything is very unemotive and kind of to the point,
very dry.
And dry, and like and journalism the same thing as well.
So
both of those things, and then to have to kind of revive that more expressive aspect of yourself and your writing. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was pretty tricky, and I don't think I'm not going to say that I've nailed it, and I don't think that I have completely revived it, but yeah, no, that was definitely a hurdle that I had to overcome for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's so fair. Even from a perspective of someone who does a lot of like creative things on the day to day, I do find that if your attention is split even a little bit, it's really hard to like keep all of the muscles sort of toned up, as it were. The piece that you did for Crawl Space, again, obviously a piece that I was a huge fan of. I think you did personally a great job of sort of weaving the needle between academic and like engaging. And I think for me at least, a big part of what I found so engaging about it was the fact that it was like so digital in nature that like, yes, you could definitely read it as just like, a straight up and down prose article, but like the fact that, it has that toggle ability to go back and forth between like the code and to literally get closer to the metal, I think is absolutely beautiful. Lee asks in the chat, actually, what kind of exercises or challenges do you try to keep up to build that creative muscle, if any at all?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's the most basic answer to the question. I do. I apologize, but you just gotta do it. You just gotta write. I found in academia and in research, you have to do a lot of like presenting as well. Especially when you're time poor. Exactly.
Absolutely.
You do a lot of presenting and like speaking to people and having to communicate the paper that you've just written in a verbal way, or in like a slideshow format or whatever. I think that's another interesting way of like exercising that muscle. I think that having to communicate difficult, or like having to communicate something that is in your head that you maybe put into a paper that can be quite maybe jargon heavy or terminology heavy, being able to repackage it as well, I think is at least for me anyway, I think I've found to be quite a good way of being able to be a bit creative with how you get your ideas across. In terms of the time poor thing, I wish I had an answer. I wish I had a silver bullet. It really is just a matter of like, like a Sunday morning for an hour, trying to carve out some time to write or to create. I find that like a lot of us, I think in terms of like exercising the muscle, and particularly with the closer to the metal piece, a lot of that time that I spent towards creating that piece wasn't spent necessarily like writing or coding. A lot of it was like snooping around on the web and seeing what people have written or what they've created, like what weird and wonderful websites there are out there. And that I found to be quite like a creative muscle, if we're going to keep using this analogy, like muscle building or muscle flexing or whatever. In addition to just like literally writing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that the act of reading is very, I mean, it helps like to situate like your work as well, to make sure that you're not like saying the same stuff that everybody else has been saying, but also it does help to get your own like, it helps to get your own like brain whirring a bit, which actually I think is a pretty nice segue into sort of our next little point about the internet, which again, wonderful, weird place, but also kind of like a crappy one, right? And a big part of your piece is about the inshittification of the internet and how things have gotten quite a lot worse. And I thought to just sort of like, I guess, segue us nicely into talking about this topic, which I know I'm quite passionate about, is how have you noticed the internet get more of a difficult place to be in creatively and as a person sort of individually? How has it gotten more difficult?
I think it's, I mean, look, it would be very easy to write off the internet as, a worse place than it once was. I think that yeah, and there's so much truth to that. You know, like online spaces have become commodified, like we're being tracked with like cookies and all that kind of stuff, and our data's being sold, and then it's being breached, and and then we're getting emails about how our data's been breached and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we've become a lot of us, we've become like the product in, you know, the e-commerce world. But you know, at the same time, there are things that we can do today that we couldn't do 20 years ago. And a lot of that, frankly, just comes down to like the fact that our infrastructure has gotten better. You know, our bandwidth has improved and our speed, like our download and upload speed. This is all such like nerdy basic things to say, but the reality, yeah, but it's true. And the reality is that that stuff has led to us being able to create more exciting, complex things that we can then share with ease to other people. Like the fact that I think we can host a video on a website is not something we could do. Like, you know, 20 years ago with the expectation that whoever's on the other side of the screen would be able to see the same thing that you can. Yeah, I think that, I mean, nostalgia is a wonderful thing. I think that we are very, I think that we run the risk of thinking of like the old internet or the early internet as, you know, this like Garden of Eden platform.
Yeah, this untouchable thing when nothing went wrong. Everyone was so happy.
Yeah, that's only just like gotten worse over time. But you know, there were a lot of horrible things in the early stages of the internet as well. Like there were horrible, like, you know, forums or things that made fun of minorities and like, like, you know, it wasn't it was obvious, and you know, there are still those things on the internet, obviously, but yeah, no, I think that like to take a nuanced point of view to it, yeah, it's very easy to say that the internet has gotten worse, and in many cases it has, of course. But at the same time, I hope that the point that I kind of was getting across in the piece somewhat was that it doesn't have to be the way that it currently is. And really it's kind of up to the individual in a way to make steps to help themselves kind of get out of those like centralized online spaces in a way.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. And I especially love your points about not wanting to give in too much to the nostalgia for this, like, yeah, like you said, fake Garden of Eden, untouchable internet that we have this sort of specter of. I feel that you see with, you know, like certain small, I don't know, for example, like NeoCities, like websites and stuff, trying to like gesture back to this old time of the internet where everything was like customizable and you could do whatever you want. And I definitely resonate with the idea that actually you can, of course, it's not as like easy nowadays, or maybe it is difficult in ways that haven't been difficult in the past, but you still can do a lot of things kind of however you'd like if you, you know, sort of carved out the time to learn. This is sort of a big question, and it's so fair if you don't have an answer, but do you have any ideas as to how we both individually and sort of communally can start building more of a like a healthy curiosity and like willingness to experiment and play with, you know, things like coding, you know, something that typically people have a lot of resistance to?
Yeah, I think that I think in part you kind of covered it, Aries. Like the fact of the matter is that yes, there are so many things that we can still do that we could do again, like back in the early days. These things haven't gone away by any means. And I think that like we're very quick to say that something is dead, or that like a platform is dead, when in reality there's probably someone who has just recreated the same thing, but it's gotten web traffic and not people don't know about it as well as the old platform or the old product. I think that, yeah, look, in terms of, I think doing it personally is far easier than doing it communally. Because yeah, doing it personally, all you need is like a text editor, and you know,
and then you're done.
And then you've got a computer, and then you've got your first web page. I think I think that it's important to, if you're going to, if you want to create and kind of resist this, like in shitified web, as Cory Doctorow called it, it also matters that you kind of create it for yourself and for like your friends and your family and your select others, and not creating it with this expectation that you'll build it and they will come. Because I think that leads people to be very disappointed. I think it leads people to kind of just be doing it for the wrong reasons. I think that, like, you know, if you think about the earliest websites, like the earliest personal websites that people created, they weren't like seeking a mass audience. They were doing it for themselves, the individual, or for the community that they may belong to. So I think it's really just about baby steps and creating stuff, having like snoops around on the web, bookmarking as much as you can whenever you find like, a weird web page and you go like, oh, that's cool. And just, I've got a folder that just is just a folder and it's called Things to Look At. And it's just like a folder full of like
list.
Literally, I need to do something with it. But that's what you do. You know, you just kind of like snoop around and kind of curate and collect stuff, and then from there you contribute to the stuff. In terms of communal resistance, it's a lot harder because a lot of the ways that we speak to people online tend to be centralized, you know, like
for sure.
Messenger or Discord or all these kinds of things. And I think that that's a bit difficult to a bit more difficult to resist. So I'm not sure I have an answer for that kind of aspect, but I think that but that being said, I think that the platforms like that have kind of emerged since the demise of Twitter, like Blue Sky and Mastodon and what's the other, Threads, Meta's Threads, all these platforms that kind of emerged with this idea of being a bit more of a decentralized social network, I think can be quite promising. I think, like this idea of if it's true what they say, and if it's true that they plan on kind of federating with each other, I think that would be quite incredible. I think that would be amazing for communities to have more of a power of curation over their experience online and how they communicate with others. I think a lot of it just comes down to, I think a lot of it also just comes down to like knowing how things work, like keeping files locally. It's such a such a weird thing, and probably not really a big problem in the grand scheme of things, but just knowing how the internet works, because I think that like over time we have kind of taken for granted how these systems work. And I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about how the internet works, but at the same time, like knowing how a server works, I think makes you understand the capacities of what can be done and what can't be done. And then from there you can work with those creativities and work with those capacities to create something really cool. You can self-host a website on a Raspberry Pi server and have it plugged in next to your TV or something. And that's your website that's sitting there. That's the internet that is sitting there, like in your house. All of these things, I think, expanding, like developing your knowledge, and then creating and trying to seek out other weird and wonderful things out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. I totally agree. No, I love that. And I feel that like there's so many good things in there. I love specifically the use of the word curation, I think, as well. Like especially, you know, the way, like you were saying, how the internet's currently set up and how the vast majority of people engage with the internet is to go on sort of, you know, apps that they don't understand how they work, that are then fed things that that they didn't even necessarily opt in to see, and you know, they're trapped in by various pretty like awful exploitative, you know, methods to try to keep you scrolling kind of thing. And I love the idea of kind of turning that, interaction on its head and taking more of a sort of slow and like careful and like conscientious approach, definitely, to like navigating digital spaces. And again, knowing how things work. I think, obviously Toolkits, we've talked a lot about how certain tools, how you can, bend them to your own creative will, but it's also important on like a grand scale to think about, like, do you understand how we are like live streaming right now? Do you know what happens when you like upload a file? And if you don't know, that's fine. But like, are you then encouraged to seek out that knowledge and, like you said, try to use that, for your own sort of purposes that aren't to get famous or to get rich or whatever.
Yeah.
Speaking on that actually huge list, because I also have like a massive list of like cool websites and stuff I've found. Do you have any just like fun ones that you can think of off the top of your head, or even ones that you can like check right now to see?
Yes. I'm just having a think. I really like, there was this project so when GeoCities went down, two researchers, Olia Leolina and Dragon Espenshede, kind of created this website, and I believe it's called one terabyte of kilobyte age. And the purpose of it, I think it's got like a website and then an accompanying Tumblr blog. And the purpose of it was that they were able to take a huge archive of these like old, like retro looking GeoCities websites. Yeah, like it's just cool. I'm not sure if you can actually download the file, but then they like post screenshots of the archived websites. And there's like a Tumblr blog or something that posts them like intermittently. And yeah, it's just very cool. Like you've got, all these like weird looking websites, and people have put out like really bizarre GIFs and like wacky font and all that kind of stuff. And I find like while you can't visit the websites themselves, obviously, but I don't know, just looking at the homepage. There we go. Thank you. Just like looking at the homepage of the websites is just like, wow, look at what we once were,
Yeah, look at what we once had.
Look at what we once had, and we can have again, is the point. We can have it again. In terms of, I'm just thinking about other websites. I find like, I mean, again, I'm biased, but yeah, the stuff that Crawlspace does is really great. There are other similar kind of digital literature publications out there, places like the HTML Review, as well, by I think Maxwell Neely Cohen runs that one. Other kind of publications that discuss the internet. Real Life was a magazine, which I think is online still, but I don't think it's publishing anymore. The Pudding do fantastic data-driven stories as well. They're an American publication, I think. So very like, yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of the stuff is like about baseball and things, which can't relate. But
wouldn't be me, but I'm glad you guys are having fun.
Yeah, exactly. I love this view. Yeah, but like cool stuff that clearly they've gotten a data set from somewhere and have been able to turn it into something creative and engaging, which I find really kind of inspiring. Trying to think about what else. Nothing else comes to mind, but I have to yeah, I'm not sure. If anything else comes to mind during our chat, I'll
yes,
blurt it out. Yeah.
Just in the middle of it, absolutely. No, that's awesome. I was even just like scrolling briefly through 1 terabyte of kilobyte age right now, and it's so like it's so like you can see the the HTML that they used. It's just so like bare bones and like so hand coded, which I think is so awesome, especially because again, we're so used to having all the coding be done for us instead. So it's cool to see, to again see what we once had and what we could potentially have again. Awesome. We have in the chat a question actually about music. I see that you work as a musician. I was wondering if there's a centralized place to explore your music work. Curious what overlap you perceive between music and programming, if any. And then, is music programming more logical and systematic for you, or is it more organic and intuitive? So a lot of questions.
A lot of questions. In terms of the music that I do, I'm a singer. I sing in a choir. So yeah, in terms of like output, unfortunately, it's kind of all like none of it's all live. Sorry, sorry, it's not very exciting.
No, that's fine.
In terms of oh, I need to refresh my. Oh, here we are. Great. Curious what overlap you perceive between music and programming. I mean, it's so funny. I was saying to a couple of friends recently, I was like, man, when I have some downtime, I'm going to be like that guy and learn how to like, you know, DJ or produce or something.
Yes.
Yes, you know, because, you know, it's a very democratized thing that can be done these days, and which is brilliant. Yeah, in terms of the overlap, I mean, the overlap is like very prominent, especially in this day and age. One of the things that I am really fascinated with is this. I'm trying to think about what the term of it is, but I think it's like live coding, where you can have a screen up and you are writing in a program, like writing code in a program that kind of like runs the program, and the program is like looping, kind of like how P5 loops, but in this case, music looping. And, you know, it's playing like various beats and MIDI files and tones and things like that. And then you can code and like change the tempo or the pitch or whatever, and run the code again. And so the code starts the new program, and you can incorporate samples and things like that. I believe the software I'm thinking of, I think, is called is it Sonic Pi? I think, yeah, a live coding environment, kind of based on Ruby, and yeah, you're able to like, you know, synthesize tracks and stuff like that. So yeah, in terms of the overlap between music and programming, it's yeah, well and truly there, and it's very exciting. In it, kind of in an adjacent way as well, I've played around a little bit with Spotify's API. Spotify's API, yeah, they provide a lot of data around and metrics around like the audio features of a song. So, you know, how danceable it is, or how happy or sad it is, those kinds of things. And that's quite good fun to play around with as well. Yeah, one of my kind of earliest like forays into this area of like kind of creative programming and data visualization was looking at ways to kind of visualize Spotify's API data as well.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it's good fun. Yeah, so that overlap is definitely there as well. I think it was the third question, but I can't quite remember what it was. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can read it out for you. Is music programming more logical and systematic for you, or is it more organic and intuitive?
I think all programming is very systematic and logical to me. I find that, and this doesn't just go to coding as well. I think this is also just in my writing. Yeah, I find that I can be quite clinical with both my writing and my coding. I think because Python was the first language that I picked up. In Python, you have a particular, like, you're kind of told to code in a particular way and have embrace this particular mindset around coding, where it has to be like clean and simple, and yeah, like easy to take a look at someone else's code and immediately understand what's going on. Yeah, and that's definitely kind of translated. Maybe that's why I'm so maybe that's why I was attracted to Python as a first language. That you know, yeah, and I feel like that's definitely translated to my writing as well. I feel like I try to get the points across first, and then you know, wrap it in expression or any kind of like emotion as well, which doesn't always work to my benefit, I will say. And I don't necessarily endorse that as a way of writing, letting your emotions come last. But yeah. But for better or for worse, that's how I've ended up doing things.
Yeah, no, I think that's so fair, actually. I feel that it is, I think, I don't know, maybe because I come from like a completely opposite direction where I'm so like I'll jump around and do whatever I love the most, which is why when it comes to actually sitting down and doing like a digital piece, the actual digital part of it can sometimes be the biggest hurdles for me because I'm so like I'll just do whatever I feel like. I feel that the kind of like approaching your creative work and kind of all of your work with like a sense of like discipline and, well, I have like these goals that I want to meet and so I'm going to do them, is helpful in order to like get stuff done. I feel, I don't know, unless of course you may find the opposite where you start to overthink things and are like, well, I need to make sure that my logical points are the absolutely best that they could be. But I don't know, I feel that approach seems really impressive to me. I think that seems cool.
It's I definitely overthink, that's for sure. Like, yeah, again, the crawl space piece, and I think this probably just comes down to the fact that it was my first piece that I'd written in quite a while. Yeah, I definitely overthought that because I think because I was quite out of practice, I was thinking constantly about how exactly I wanted to present myself, because I knew that this was going to be a piece that involved the word I or the letter I. Which I generally try to avoid at all costs, but
keep that away from me.
It's just the way that it was going to end up. So yeah, what kind of I did I want to be? And yeah, like the editors were really great at that, at helping me through figuring out how I wanted to present myself in position, like in relation to the points that I was trying to get across. I was thinking about, I remember having a meeting with Rory, the editor, and was thinking, I basically said to them like, I'm not sure what tone do I want to present in this piece, in this like however 2,000 word or whatever it was essay. And Rory was like, okay, cool, but like, have you actually written the piece, or like, have you actually read
to filth?
Have you actually like read, like, made your points? And I was like, no, I have. I focused too much. Yeah, I focused too much on like the packaging and the presentation, but haven't actually like written down what it was that I was trying to write in the first place. So and that was a bit of a a rude awakening, but one that was very much needed. Because I was overthinking it. Absolutely. Definitely.
Oh yeah, no. What was your experience on the digital side being edited for Crawl Space? Because obviously there was a lot of weight in terms of the actual like writing of the piece. But did you come up with any similar roadblocks when thinking about it? Did you have the essay but you didn't know how to digitize it, or did you already have like a concept? Like, how did that process kind of work out?
The concept was very fuzzy at the start, I think. Rory was instrumental. Rory and Hannah were instrumental in getting the visual aspects of that piece up and going. My HTML and the code itself, if you kind of dig into it, is quite complex with its CSS and with its JavaScript. And while I'm comfortable with both of those, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert, and Rory was far better at it than I was. So much better. And so, they were really to the extent that I felt that I was worried I was a bit too hands-off, actually, because Rory could just do amazing things that I couldn't do. So really, it was all them. It was all Rory and Hannah. We came up with the idea, I think, quite early on in the meetings. We had a few meetings along the way. This idea of kind of a toggle switch that lets you see the HTML underneath. That was, I think, something that came up quite early in the meetings, but like the practicalities of that were actually quite difficult to create and make happen. So fortunately they did. And I think it looks okay. But
I think it looks wonderful. Yeah,
I think it gets the point across. But I cannot take full credit for that by any means. It was really the work of Rory and Hannah to assist with that.
Of course, yeah. I feel that that's also quite, I feel, reassuring to hear, because when I got published in Crossbest, I had sort of a similar position where I had like a sort of fuzzier on the digital concept, and like Rory and Hannah really swept in and really helped like a lot, did a lot of heavy lifting there. And I feel that there's maybe this expectation that going into doing digital writing that you're meant to know how to do absolutely everything and you're meant to be just like a whiz at it all. So yeah, but like in reality, not actually true. Oftentimes, you know, these kinds of works are collaborative, even if you never intended them to be or never foresaw them being. And I think it's cool to hear, you know, I mean, obviously that they're both incredible editors. We already know that, but also just to see, you know, the extent to which collaboration is sort of baked into the like medium, even if it's not something that you tend to think of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many factors that you need to consider as well. Like I think, you know, being a digital thing, like even just the realities that, you know, like I have a different laptop size, like screen size to Rory and Hannah. And so something might be off screen to me, but look fine to them. And just all this, like, kind of at the most fundamental parts of collaboration. Like it's very boring and it's not very sexy, but like eating that stuff is really really good to have a second pair of eyes on.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I feel there's a lot of unsexy elements to digital stuff in particular, making it look good, making sure that it works. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to have to wrap up the session right now, but of course we are going to be jumping into the closed Q&A. So, you know, before I do my big old spiel, thank you so much, Caleb, for coming on and chatting with me and with everyone in the chat about just like the internet and stuff.
The internet.
It's been so fun.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for contributing as well for the Toolkits digital storytelling folks. We will be jumping into the Google Meet in just a moment. A reminder that the session will be available on YouTube as a resource and will be captioned in the coming days. So if you would like to revisit any of tonight's conversation or of any of the other, I think it's like over 70 other talks we've had from previous Toolkits guests across all of the streams. So feel free to check out the archive of the Toolkits live talks on the Express Media YouTube in the live tab and the Toolkits playlist. Before we head off, Caleb, just one last little question for the public. Was there anything that you wanted to plug? Any last minute sort of closing thoughts? Anything that you would like to leave our audience with?
Oh, on the spot. Nothing comes to. I feel like I need to say something deeply
inspiring. Come up with like a
No, I think like really I think I would say don't. I feel like it's very easy if you're going to be a little bit different, if you're going to try and, you know, make your own website or whatever instead of using like WordPress or a platform like that, or, you know, do something that we've kind of discussed here today. I think it's very easy to fall into this trap of maybe being like, oh, I'm seeking attention, or I'm being a hipster, or, you know, like I'm just being a little bit different for the sake of it. But I think that, you know, I would prefer the world to be full of like pretentious people that have various interests than everyone who does the same thing and has the same interests. So, you know, don't be too afraid, I think, to do something a little bit different, I suppose. Is that inspiring enough? I'm not sure. But
no, I think that's perfect. Go forth, everybody. Make the self-indulgent things that you want to make, because the value is in having it made in the first place. Thank you so much, Caleb. All right, we're gonna then head off. We'll head to the proper Google Meet again. Thank you guys so much for joining. And Toolkitters, we'll see you in the chat very soon. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
All right.